Thank you, Donald.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, go for it. I know Michael, Ricardo, you guys were the first one in case you guys want to get started with your questions.
Yeah, sure. If I may, congratulations on the Oscar nomination. It's great to hear finally. I'd like to ask you about the Harkonnen characters. No, they have this clean shaved head and eyebrowless. I heard you describe this makeup process as complex. I'm a complete amateur in makeup in terms. So why is that? What did this makeup process entail exactly? Why is this complex?
I think it's complex because it's so clean, and it's kind of, Denis wanted something different in the sense that it's so clean and almost a kind of, it's perfect. You know, it's beautiful in the sense that it's a perfect, it's a little bit alopecia. It came from that a little bit. It's alabaster, there's no eyebrows. And it's a very difficult makeup to do because you have nothing to hide. Do you know, like when you're doing a prosthesis or a prosthetic makeup or facial hair or tattoos, you know, the audience know what it is. But in this, because the eyebrows are right here, it's a very difficult application. And everybody's wearing them. We could get people to shave their heads. We did bald caps on a lot of people, but no one's going to shave their eyebrows. Who are we kidding? No one. Like, we even offered money. I mean, they give people a bump, you know, with the background artists, they give them a bump to shave their heads. You know, no one will shave their eyebrows. So it's a very complex makeup in that takes a very skilled makeup artist to do those brow covers, because you have an edge here and here. So I think for that reason, plus the theatricality of it, is it's precise, and you see the face is so open.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may, there's a lot of makeup sort of in the story of Dune originally, like the makeup that the Mentats wear to signal what they're doing, and the makeup that Dr. Yue wears to signify his tradition. With all of that already there in the book, how did you approach making it your own, and how did you go about putting on that makeup in a way that would tell the story to people who knew the books without looking too odd to people who didn't?
I'm so happy you're asking, because the thing with the book, and you know, is that, you know, I knew a little bit about it. Of course, that, you know, earlier adaptations and things, is I really tried not to follow anything, and so I didn't go back to the book, and I didn't go back to the film, because it kind of traps you. Do you know what I mean? Because it starts to play games with you, that this is a new interpretation, and it's Denis' film. This is the film he wanted to make since he was a kid. And sometimes with my team, occasionally somebody would make a reference to, like, even Dr. Yui or Liet Kynes or someone, and it would throw me a little bit, because there'd be a reference. So in our very early, when I was doing Photoshop and very early makeup brainstorming, as Denis calls it, I would hear somebody say, yeah, but they had the stain. It would throw me a little bit, because I'm not copying or doing something they did. I wanted something we did. And I felt like I had to start over, so I didn't reference ever again, apart from a little homage, like with the diamond tattoo, for instance. But of course, our characters, you know, people talk about the book, but of course, our characters, we had, you know, you know, Dr. Yui would be one character, Liet Kynes is a woman in our film, whereas it was a man in the other film. Do you know what I mean? So I think we have a lot of leeway, and I think it's a fresh start of a new creation.
I'd like to follow up on that a little bit. There have been previous iterations of Dune, David Lynch's 1984 film and the Sci-Fi Channel miniseries. And then of course there's, you know, millions of people have read those books. So everybody, as the viewers, have images in their heads from the books and from those previous movies. You've kind of spoken from your standpoint, you didn't want to copy it, you wanted to make things your own. Have you heard from audiences that on your take, like, do they appreciate that you went your own direction? How does the audience view that from what you've gotten from feedback?
You know, I mean, there was one or two people. It's very interesting, because I experienced a little bit of this with Blade Runner 2049. You know, a little bit of people who love it, you know, love, obviously, you know, Ridley Scott's Blade Runner. For me, I mean, I don't come into it. I'm hired because Denis asked me to come up with our own thing. So certainly for the Baron, I wasn't, you know, there are people who are still around who are involved in David Lynch's Dune. So, you know, I just sort of say to people, but we're doing our own thing. And everyone's accepted that. I mean, I think there's one person who said to me, why didn't he have pustules? You know, and I thought, well, I don't know. We're not doing that, you know. And I think that's what took us a long time to figure out. Like, well, actually, not a long time for the Baron. Evolved much faster than the Harkonnen. The overall Harkonnen took longer, to be honest, for Denis and I to work that out. But the mentat, like this little tattoo, I mean, honestly, I spent ages on that. It's the little things that get you. But to answer your question, I felt like people, I think, felt it was refreshing and they wanted another movie. People wanted this movie and were excited about the characters and excited about our cast. And that excites me because I think we have a dynamic and it's like representational cast that people were excited, and Zendaya and Timmy, I mean, what's not to love? And I don't know about the pustules. I don't really know if that would have worked. I will say in the Baron, there's a concept of him. I went a little bit nutty a couple of times in the Photoshops where I did one with David Desmalchin with like full makeup. And Denis was like, no bueno. And I kind of knew he'd say that because I do a separate file with like, what if? And there was one with the Baron where we talked just for a second about hair. And he said the Baron does not have hair. Hence, none of the Harkonnen have hair. And that's kind of how the characters are evolved and created by, you create one and the rest follow suit.
So congratulations, by the way. This is an incredible achievement. I want to talk a bit about the fact that this film has over like 2,000 special effects. How does the use of the chroma key process, or how does that affect your choices in designing the hair and makeup and prosthetics?
Well, I mean, there's really a more simplistic way for me, because I think in makeup, as much as it's evolved, like of all the categories in movies, and I love the question because very few categories have evolved as much as makeup and visual effects and cinematography over the years, if you think about it. I mean, but for me, I just think I approach it as feature film makeup. I mean, I started where it was 35 millimeter, and what Greg Fraser did is, it's extraordinary. But I still approached it as though I still do 35 millimeter, even though we did digital. And I think you working together with Greg and Paul Lambert and it's this collaboration where I know Paul's going to tell me, hey, we're going to work on some eye color things. What do you think? We all talk to each other, and that doesn't happen on a lot of films. And we work together, and Jackie and Bob and costume, we all show each other things, and if it'll work with each other, what he's doing, she's doing. And I think that Greg made us look really good. I can just say, especially with his lighting in the desert, because people often can look, even when we want Timmy and Rebecca to look quite strained and tired and a bit fraught, you know, with the dust and everything. He did something, well, not that there's a lot of lighting in the desert, but also backlit. So they look incredibly good, but also not so good, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. But technologically, what everybody was doing, I thought they brought their A game to it.
Hi, Michael O'Keefe here. I have a YouTube channel called Missing Movie Radio. I was, in 2019, I was lucky enough to hang out with Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead. And yeah, I know it's not Dune related, but I was just wondering what you could tell us about Moon Knight coming out, because I saw that you did work on that. They're
such great guys, and I like the poster behind you.
Thank you.
And I think that's a great looking movie, and incredible makeup, by the way. They're great guys. They're really great, and a lot of fun to work with. It was a really interesting project for me, kind of something new, and Oscar Isaac from Dune. So, and they're tremendous guys who I think have a great future, and they're really nice, and it's like another generation to me, because I feel like I'm kind of you know, Denis, all of us, we're all sort of the same age group, right? And then these are newer guys coming up that were of a new generation. So Moon Knight, I think, will be very exciting when we see it later in the year.
Looking forward to it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Wondering if you could talk a little bit about your relationship with Denis. I know you guys started working together on Prisoners, and you did Sicario, and as you've worked together, the films have gotten bigger, Blade Runner and now Dune. Talk about your relationship working with him, and how did it start? How has it developed? How has it evolved over the years? And has it changed any now that the projects and the scope of the films have gotten larger?
You know, I think that when we first met, I started working on Prisoners, which was a really challenging project for me, just because of the cast that we had. It was that kind of all-star cast. I'm very, very fortunate that, I mean, talk about a lucky turn for me. Roger Deakins introduced me to Denis from Skyfall. I mean, and what an incredible reference. Roger and his wife, James Deakins, introduced me to Denis and say, you should meet Donald Mowat. I thought, I mean, come on. And it all worked because I knew those producers from other jobs, and we go way back, and we just worked really well together. Denis is very precise. I think I'm kind of precise. So I think when you work with a director who's very, knows what he likes, you're able to present ideas. And Prisoners was a tough makeup movie. It had a lot of elements with Paul Dano and Jake, and tattoos and like some stuff on Paul Dano that was kind of difficult, So every movie for me with Denis, I mean, I think has had makeup elements. Even Sicario, the opening, Emily Blunt finds his bodies. I think they've been less is more makeups that are still really makeup elements in the film with the cinematography. So they've been under the radar, but Denis very, it's all anchored in reality. So he likes the makeups to be really precise and real. And those are hard makeups to do.
Donald.
Hi,
it's Melissa. I just want to bring a little Canadiana back in here because my show airs across Canada and also in the US. But you being Canadian,
yes.
Over the years, you've been at this for over 30 years. And I think a lot of our fans want to know a little bit about the starting point for you, like your career choice to delve into this department of hair and makeup and prosthetics and sort of, how you inspire the industry. Where did it all come from?
Well, I think because, first of all, I was born and raised in Montreal, and then I went to Toronto when the business was happening. It was starting to happen in Toronto in the mid 80s, I think. And I worked in Montreal on Joshua Then and Now. I was a trainee assistant and working in the crowd, and Ted Kotcheff's film, and I worked with great people. And then I went to Toronto, and they were testing makeup artists who could do natural makeup. And I got hired on Anna Green Gables for CBC. And then I was on the fly doing prosthetics as a junior, working with amazing people like Stéphane Dupuis. I think I was just a kid like other people in film, just kind of maybe slightly oddball, like movies. I love movies as a kid. And I wanted to do it. And I saw makeup and I loved it. And when you see names, especially as a young boy who's a little bit, I didn't play sports, I didn't play hockey, slightly out there, my poor parents. And I could do makeup and getting asked to do school plays and doing strange things and seeing names, especially of men, makeup. It was all men. It was kind of, I can do this. And it really inspired me to start working. And when I went to Toronto and met people who said, let me see that. It was an actress called Leslie Hope from Canada, who's now a director. I did her makeup, and she went to LA to work for John Cassavetes. And they said, that's a beautiful natural makeup. And I got my first jobs from doing those makeups. And then The Fly. So,
well, congratulations. Awesome.
Thank you.
I would love to talk a little bit about the natural makeup in Dune, because I think everyone looks first at the sort of the prosthetics and the big stuff, but you've got characters who are from very different environments. You've got people who live out in the desert. You've got people from a water world. You've got people from a world which has got constant smog. How did you address the way that would affect the character's skin and get them to look right for that?
I would say that we started, as we were talking a little bit earlier about once you establish a couple of principal characters like Stellan, and then getting into Josh Brolin, Timmy and Rebecca, for me, being 1 and 2 in the film and working every day of the film. Our concern was the contrast of seeing them and the paleness and the quite dramatic look to them when you see them in the desert. And Denis wanted to maintain that throughout. And the Fremen being people living, so we based it a lot on people of all kinds of, not just, diverse, but representational people of the world, of people who, whether they're from all kinds of places, how people who live outside would look. And we did tribal tattooing, things like that, shout out Mapes and aging people, and Javier Bardem would be a better example, for instance. And then really distinct groups. The Sardaukar were more like a paramilitary group. Militia, I think, really is a better word. Bearded, a lot of broken noses, alphanumeric tattoos across their foreheads. Then the army, Atreides, where they come from. And then the officers and the kind of the royal, the circle of Paul's father, the Duke, with kind of a Russian, maybe Prince Michael of Kent, that feeling of that bearded look. And I know Jackie West has referred to, the royal families of Russia, that kind of thing. I think that was the feel for that. So we're very distinct groups, and a very natural look. And again, Denis wants it to look like nobody has anything, but they do. They have some form of hair and makeup, and then the Harkonnen, who are, it's quite theatrical, and it's really, they're made up. It's a combination of traditional makeup and airbrush makeup with eyebrow covers and ball caps.
If you are the winner of the Oscar this year, what are you going to say?
Well,
I don't like to thank.
Well, I don't like to jinx things, and I feel like, it's really corny, and it's because I'm from Canada. Probably it's slightly, maybe it is a little bit corny, but I've got to say one thing. I was thinking, somebody said 30 years in the business. It's actually 36 or 37. I thought the other day when someone was talking to me about this, saying, it's incredible, it's your first nomination. I was like, yeah, I mean, I just think after 35 or 36 years, it kind of feels like I'm very lucky that I worked in feature films for 35 years. Just that in itself, because very few people are able to say that. And I don't compare myself to other people's careers. I just think I'm so lucky and fortunate and privileged that I've been able to work on films, feature films, for that amount of time, because it's not easy to just get work and stay working. And so many good people don't get to work all the time. So that's the award. I mean, it's to not, be a little bit, saccharine or schmaltzy, but that is the award. It really is. So if something good happens, I'll thank a lot of people who helped me get there, because there's a lot of people who help people, and nobody gets there alone. And the incredible amount of people that worked on this team. I mean, it's just the sculpting of the Baron. I mean, I say it over and over, but not only Lube Larsen and Eva Bombar, but we've got people, came from Spain, and I had 7 people sculpting the Baron. It's a massive suit. I mean, it's 22 pounds, which is however many kilos. But there's 5 people to do that one makeup. And my whole team. So at one point I had 17 or 18 makeup and hair people working on the film, plus second unit, plus Jordan. And then all the people who make stuff for us, tattoos. And so those are the people I would thank if I were ever in that position.
Just make sure that before they, play the music, right? Make sure you get everyone in there before they start playing the music off the stage. I want to add to this because you're very humble here today. Not only have you been in the business over 30 years, but you've given back a lot to up and coming artists, and you've received recognition for that. And I want to sort of touch on that point, that as much as you said this award is super spectacular, is the fact that, giving back to the next generation and outreach and education. How important is that to you? And today, knowing the success you've achieved, what advice would you give to that next generation?
Well, I just hope people kind of practice what they preach. I've always felt like I stay in touch with a lot of people over the years. I have friends who don't even work in the business. I think of like Canadian actress Kate Nelligan, who's still one of my oldest friends. She was a phenomenal actress. She gave it up because she just decided, she'd had enough. And but I do feel like more people should be participating, whether it's I do a lot in Canada and the UK and the US, work with kids. I mean, it's not that hard to volunteer your time. I just find the time, and we get kids on set pre-COVID, but get kids on set programs. So if I find out there's kids who want to do sound, I call people up. Cinematography, I call Roger Deakins and James. We get equipment. We get kids who, it's not that hard, because not everyone can go to the AFI. Not everyone can go to NYU. That's what's so important to me, because I didn't have that. And we didn't have, there's makeups. Yeah, it's great if you can, and it's wonderful, but you really learn on the job. And that's how I learned. So I feel, yes, and I wish more people would do it, because we would have what we need today. And a lot of people are, we're retiring, and people are. So I wish more people would participate a little bit more.
Donald,
Go ahead.
I'd like to ask you about the dead bodies of the poisoned Harkonnen. It's not something I heard about a lot. Like, it's just a couple of seconds that we see the bodies, but they are terrific and they're scary. They truly died a painful death. So how did you work on these dead bodies? I know you have experience on them. Last year, the little things is a recent example, right?
Well, I think so that was very interesting, because sometimes you can have all the technology in the world. I always keep going, motion picture, arts and sciences, and we always talk about technology. But then sometimes with everything there, and we have got all these things, then you go in makeup to the basics. And I always remember things like Alka-Seltzer, and I didn't have any. And we were looking all through the makeup trailers and all this technology we have. And I had this effervescent vitamin C, and we just took that, and you can do some great makeups with very few products, and pale and sickly. And there was a French film, I think Denis had referenced once, and I keep all these images, and kind of ghostly and wax-like, and then took the vitamin C, and if you spray it with some water, they foam like, rabid animals, and it looked quite creepy. And Denis was like, that looks really interesting. I said, it's vitamin C. Somebody thought we're going to tell them it's some new product that we ordered from Tokyo or London. It was from the pharmacy. But yeah, that was fun to do, actually. It was really fun.
Nice, thank you.
I was wondering if we could go back to Oscar talk for one sec here. I have a two-part question. Number one, this is your first Oscar nomination. I was wondering if you could take us back to that morning when the nominations were announced. What was it like? Who were you with? What was that experience like, getting that Oscar nomination? And then second part of the question is, what are your thoughts on the controversy about 8 of the categories not being allowed to participate in the live ceremony, and what are your thoughts on that?
Well, okay, where was I? So I'm on a job, a Guy Ritchie job in Spain. So on the day, I put it out of my head, because people kept reminding me, Jake Gyllenhaal kept telling me over and over, this is going to happen for you. And we were shooting a scene with him, I don't know, in the middle of the mountains somewhere, and he's lying down and he's injured, and I've got this makeup, and he's bloody and bleeding, and I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying that. And he kept getting up, and he kept calling his assistant saying, let's get the phone and watch these Oscar nominations any minute. And they kept saying, we're ready. And then he waited and waited. And so he's lying down, I'm doing the touches, and somebody said, he's nominated. And so we had this moment, and I couldn't do the touches. I said, Jake, I totally screwed this up. I can't match your makeup. You've totally screwed me up. So that was my moment of finding out. Jake was thrilled. We had a big moment on the set. It was really, I'm so happy he was there, because he's a good friend and hugely supportive. And then it was a great moment. And Mark Wahlberg's the first person to call me outside of working there with Jake. But this cut doesn't match in the movie, and that's what I'm worried about when this film comes out, because it really doesn't match. I couldn't do it. My hands were shaking. I couldn't match the makeup. So maybe they'll give me a get out of jail card for that. As far as the other thing, look, it's so unfortunate. I know it's been coming for a long time. I guess maybe the whole thing has to go back to being a lunch. Maybe this televised thing. I know not everybody wants to see all the categories, and it's too long, and people say, but I feel like, I don't know what to say. Honestly, maybe I don't think it's going to change ratings personally. I really don't. And I feel like as a 20-year member, I guess I wasn't going to say anything, but I do think maybe if it had been a different category, people might feel differently. But because it's the people who actually make the movies and work the hardest, it's very tough for some people. I'm okay because I know what people feel. But you know, it's a bitter pill for a lot of people. I know it's been coming for a long time. It won't change the outcome. I think we all know that. So maybe we go back to the early days of the 30s and 40s of the Roosevelt Hotel, maybe. How about that? And everybody goes to the same thing, and then it'll take that away. I don't know. I'm honored either way. So I'm just happy to be there, but I understand why people are so upset. I just have to kind of focus now on not being upset, because there's too many other things going on in the world that are bigger and more important. Maybe that's actually the focus for right now.
You talked a bit about being in the presence of working on your next film, a Guy Ritchie film, and I want to talk a bit about when it comes to creating hair and makeup for a project and designing it, and the actor's perspective. You know, what would you say one of the best tools of being able to communicate with your actor, knowing that they might have to sort of transform, and some people feel a little, you know, kind of working through the actor process. Walk us through a bit about that.
I think it's what I've learned. I mean, I learned very, very early on from great actors. I mean, I was very fortunate as a kind of a kid, really, especially in Canada, when I was on working with people like Dan Petrie, amazing directors, Norman Jewis and people like that, that I was able to kind of cut my teeth, so to speak, where I would be able to say to an actor, but what do you feel like in 2 months when we're shooting at 4 o'clock in the morning? Do you want that makeup? Right now, it sounds good. And that's one of the biggest things I learned. I learned it with Christian Bale on The Fighter. I learned it with Amy Adams on the same film. I've learned with Jake on Prisoners. Prisoners, I learned a lot about standing up for myself and saying to people, but if we do this makeup, will you live with it in 8 weeks' time? And I'm so forever grateful for having the courage on those films to say that to the actor and the director, because sometimes they do come back and go, you know what, you're right, because it will compromise the film, or will this makeup compromise our day? And can we shoot this? And will we regret that we put a mustache on someone, or a wig, or that we did an aging makeup that we can't afford to do or wait for 4 hours?
Hi, can I talk right now? Hello.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Victoria. Greetings from Brazil. I'm Victoria.
Hi, Victoria.
Hello. Hi. Sorry if anyone already asked you this, but I've seen you got inspired by the Doctor's Moral Island and Apocalypse Now for the makeup of Baron Harkonnen. I loved what you did. I was very afraid of the movie back when I was a kid, by the way. So my question for you is, how was the process of this choice? Why would you choose both movies, Apocalypse Now and Dr. Moreau? What inspired you to create this look for Baron?
Because
besides the original work.
Before we start on Denis' film, he's already worked with our production designer, Patrice Vermette. They've already worked together, and with Sam, his storyboard artist. And Denis very much works with storyboard long before script. So they've already got some ideas, and I knew that there was going to be reference to Apocalypse Now. I thought of Dr. Moreau because there was something about the Baron that felt different, that we had to be very careful that we weren't doing fat shaming, or that I had said to Denis, if the character is a big man, he has to be a powerful man, not funny, not comedy, which is what we see so often. And he agreed. And so that was our first Photoshop. But I saw Dr. Moreau with the white skin and this clothing, and there was something about it he responded to, and Stellan responded to right away. You know, with his hand, that was very Apocalypse Now when he's in the steam. But for me, it was more Dr. Moreau because it was flamboyant, but it was still powerful and dangerous. So that's really what happened. And, you know, every character has elements of other characters from other things.
Perfect. How many hours did it take to make the makeup of Stellan?
So when we budgeted, when we decided how many people, the shop that would build it in Stockholm at the makeup designers, we planned it would probably be, if he's wearing his clothes, would be a 4-hour application with 5 people. If he had no clothes on, would be 6-hour application. The thing that happened in the film is that Stellan and Denis decided they loved the way he looked without the clothes on. But when they decided to not wear clothes all the time, it increased our schedule and our budget because we had to add a couple of days. So for me, it was like, oh, it's increasing our labor, et cetera, but they loved it and it worked out really well. And Stellan is so enthusiastic to do it that it makes it so easy.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Obrigado.
Obrigado.
Hey, as you said, 37 or so years in the business, and over that time, something that has always stood out to me is the incredible detail you bring to your work. For example, In the Mouth of Madness and Body Parts are fun ones to pause, study the frames, and see the contributions that you made to immersing us in those worlds. Throughout your career, obviously, camera clarity has gotten more crystal, especially in Dune. How has your creation process changed from the start of your career to what it is now, where everything is in HD, shot from different angles? Were you always thinking about some of those details that we may not necessarily see on screen in its full-blown clarity?
Well, when digital started, I remember a lot of people were terrified, makeup artists particularly. I'm so glad you're asking that. A lot of people don't realize the ramifications for us. Many other departments it was fine. It was just, it didn't change. For us, it did. People left the business. People just thought, I don't know how to do this. For me, I proceeded. The first film I think I worked on that was really heavily digital was David Fincher's The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I was a little bit terrified. He was incredible, I have to say. Initially, I was terrified. When I did a makeup test on Daniel Craig, David was happy with what I did. We did a beat up looking Daniel. David liked what I did. He's very tough on makeup and he's very precise as well. And technically savvy about everything. So I learned from that. And of course, Roger Deakins taught me a lot working with the Alexa camera on Skyfall, because we also, Daniel Craig again. And then I eased up on it because I thought if you have great experience in feature films, 35 millimeter and a steady, really natural makeup, a hand for natural makeup, you'll be okay. Where the problem lies is you have to be honest with your director to say there are certain makeups won't pass anymore. And you have to be able to have the honesty, because you can Photoshop whatever you want to show your director and say, this is the makeup, like, I don't know, Jared Leto on Blade Runner 2040, or even the little things with his nose. But I knew there's only so much correction you can get, and you have to be able to pull that off. And I think that was hard for some people to accept, but I'm okay with it now. I think a lot of people have learned, and there's an ease with digital now, is that Roger really taught, I owe that to Roger really, because he taught me so much. And James Deakins, boy, she knows more about technology than anyone I've ever met. I mean, she teaches everybody. And then you work with Greg Fraser, who's incredible, because you see your results right away in the DI. And that was incredible on Dune, because I never had to wait for dailies. I mean, we saw camera tests, obviously, with Stellan or Dave Bautista, but you see the results immediately. Whereas in the old days, as you know, you'd wait for dailies. If you could be shooting in London or it's being shipped to LA or New York or vice versa, it could be days before you saw the results. You'd be shooting for a week before you saw camera tests sometimes. So I feel more comfortable. And in fact, I really like it now. So if I was asked to work on 35 millimeter, I might be a little nervous now.
Audrey, do you have a question?
Yes,
Hi.
I do. Thank you. Hi, Donald. Congrats again on your nomination.
Thank you.
You have such an impressive background and decades of career in makeup. I'm so curious, what has been the most rewarding thing about being a makeup artist in all these films? Like, what keeps you going and what makes it worth it for you?
Well, I think what makes it worth it, like anybody, it's what makes it worth it for you. I mean, you all love what you do. I mean, you have to love what you do. And because it's hard and there are days you want to just not do it. And but I have very few of those, I have to say, and that's really lucky and fortunate for me. I think doing what you love and being a filmmaker, because I think it's important that you feel good about what you do and there's respect. And when I work with someone like Denis, he has such respect for everybody on the set, for every department, not just the department heads, for everybody on the set. And that the trickle down that people talk about, it comes from the top. Well, that's true. But I love what I do, and I have since I started. And there are times when you don't, and you go, oh God, what happened? Why am I doing this? And every once in a while when that happens, I think you just have to suck it up when you're on a job you're not loving, and you keep going, you know. But I think for most people, but what drives anybody really, you know? So I think that's the real secret, isn't it? And then seeing the work and that you're happy and working with nice people is very, very important.
Wonderful. And a follow-up question to that is that in your career, what has been the most surprising thing that you found out about yourself?
That I am tough. I'm really tough. I mean, I wouldn't have thought that as a little kid, you know, because I got picked on and bullied and stuff as a kid. In high school, things like that. I mean, it was really hard. And so I think I'm really tough because it gives you the emotional, I think, what do they call that? Sort of emotional IQ, but I'm very sensitive to other people's feelings. And I think that helps actors tremendously. And I know they feel it from me. So I can interpret things. And but I think at the same time, I'm very tough, and I have I'm able to endure a lot. And I think that people know that about me. So many actors rely and directors rely on me for being able to kind of run a ship, because it's the first thing that people see when they come in the morning. And I can sort of settle everybody and get it going. Yeah, I'm pretty tough. So I learned that about myself, and that because sometimes it's not easy, you know, for people, and they go through things. So that's probably what I learned about myself. Yeah.
Are you excited for Dune 2?
I'm sorry?
Are you excited to return for Dune 2?
Yes.
Yeah, it's definitely going to happen?
Yes.
That's good stuff. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, exclusive, Michael. Well, thank you
That's
guys. We're going to go ahead and close it up. In case anybody have one last question you want to squeeze it in, now is time to ask.
Yeah, let's do one more.
Talking about Dune 2, when you were filming this first Dune, everybody knows that it was going to be part of this, the first part of a story, that there would hopefully be a part 2, which has now been announced. In your makeup planning, were there any, even though Dune 2 wasn't officially announced, was there anything going on in your head in planning the makeup that you knew, like, well, we have to do it this way because if there is a part 2, there might be challenges? I don't know if that question makes sense.
No, it makes actually complete sense. That makes complete sense.
Okay.
To be honest, there were one or two things. There were one or two things that crossed my mind. I could only say there were one or two, like the poisoning. There were a couple of characters I thought, what happens after this? So yeah, it's a great question, actually. There were one or two that I thought, especially because there were a couple of pickup shots. And that was really difficult for us because we did have pickups. It's like not a secret. We had pickups in the pandemic, which everyone's fed up hearing about the pandemic, but it's a reality. And we did have pickups. And that was very difficult for me, not just the pandemic, but actually recreating like Oscar Isaac's beard. You have no idea. That was harder than the entire movie. That was harder than anything to recreate that and the hair. So it took 3 of us to do beard extensions and have a wig made. And so that's when I kind of thought, there were a couple of things. So having conversations with actors who maybe changed their appearance a little bit, or people who, you know, younger people who are a little bit older, that kind of made me question it a little. And I've been very cautious with that. So, you know, little things we did before, but that's about it.
Cool. Thank you. Well, thanks again, everyone. I'm gonna go ahead.
Thanks, everybody.
stop.
Congratulations.
Good luck at the Oscars.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
again.
Thanks,
Yeah, good luck.
everybody. Thanks for being so
Best of luck.
nice. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.